A storm rolls in, low and fast. The kind that doesn't ask permission. The herd starts to shift, then tighten, then break. And now it's moving. Not where you want it to go, but where it wants to go. You don't have time to think, no time to plan, so you move, or you get run over. And in that moment, there's only one thing between you and disaster: the horse beneath you. Howdy, Chip Schweiger here. Welcome to another edition of Way Out West, where the stories of the American West are told, cowboy wisdom is earned, and the legacy of the American cowboy still rides on. This week we're talking about the most important partnership out on the frontier. Not the one between cowboys, not between ranchers, between a man and his horse. Because a cowboy wasn't just riding. He was trusting, relying, depending. Day after day, mile after mile. Through heat, through cold, through dust that stuck in your teeth, and wind that never seemed to quit. And I'll tell you this, I'm not a cowboy, but I've spent enough time around them and enough time around horses to know that this isn't something you fake. You either understand that partnership or you don't. And when things went wrong, as they did, that partnership was the difference between staying in the saddle or not making it home at all. After the episode, check out the show notes at wayoutwestpod.com/the horse. Welcome back. If you strip it all down, the horse wasn't part of the job. The horse was the job. Everything a cowboy did started there. You didn't get to the cattle without a horse. You didn't move the herd without a horse. And you didn't cover country without a horse. And you didn't last long without the right one. This wasn't occasional riding. This was every day, sun up to sundown. In the saddle so long your legs forgot what walking felt like. And that kind of work, it exposed everything. Every weakness, every flaw in the rider and in the horse. Now here's something worth understanding. Not every horse was cut out for this. Some had the build, others had the speed, but that wasn't enough. You needed a horse with sense, a horse that didn't lose its head when things got loud or tight or unpredictable. Cattle don't move like machines. They bunch, they scatter, they turn back on themselves. And a good cow horse could read that, almost before it happened. Shift its weight, cut off a steer, hold a line. All without being told every step. Now that's not training alone. That's instinct, refined by work. You could buy a horse, but you couldn't buy a partnership. That had to be built. And it wasn't built in big moments. It was built in small ones. Every ride, every correction, every quiet adjustment. Consistency. That's what shaped it. A horse learns your hands, learns your balance, and learns what you're asking before you fully ask it. And over time, you start to feel the same thing in reverse. You know when that horse is tense, when it's unsure, when it's locked in and ready. That kind of awareness doesn't come from a manual. It comes from miles. Long before the American cowboy, there were the vaqueros. Working cattle across Spanish and Mexican lands. And they understood something early. Force breaks a horse. Feel builds one. Their approach wasn't rushed. It was deliberate. Hands low, movements quiet, signals subtle. Because the goal wasn't control. it was responsiveness. A horse that wanted to work with you is a different animal entirely. And when American cowboys came along, they borrowed heavily from that foundation, whether they realized it or not. Picture the rhythm of a day. You're up early, coffee if you're lucky, saddle goes on before the sun fully breaks the horizon. Leather creaks, horse shifts under you, and then you ride. Miles of it. Checking fence lines, gathering cattle, moving slow when things are calm, moving fast when they're not. Your horse carries all of it. The miles, the terrain, the decisions. And the better the partnership, the less you have to think about it. That's the goal. Not constant correction, but quiet cooperation. Because the work always turned hard. Maybe it was the weather, a blue norther rolling in, fast and unforgiving. Maybe it was terrain, rough ground, loose rock, hidden holes. Or maybe it was the cattle, a nervous herd, a sudden break, a full-blown stampede. And here's the truth. In those moments, you don't have time to micromanage a horse. You need one that's already there, already thinking, already committed. Because hesitation, even for a second, can cost you. Every cowboy knew what a wreck looked like. Horse goes down, rider goes with it. Dust, confusion, pain. And sometimes worse than that. A bad step, a bad reaction, that's all it takes. And that's why the partnership mattered so much. Because you are counting on that horse, not just to carry you, but to keep you out of trouble. Or at least to give you a fighting chance. Now here's the part that doesn't always get talked about. This wasn't sentimental, not in the way we think about it today. Cowboys weren't out there naming horses and telling stories around the fire about them. But that doesn't mean the bond wasn't real. It just showed up differently in how a man took care of his horse, checking its legs, watched its breathing, paid attention. Because if that horse went down, so did everything else. And over time, respect builds. Not loud, not dramatic, just steady. I keep coming back to this idea that some things can't be rushed, and this is one of them. That kind of trust, the kind that shows up when it matters, is built slowly, proven over time. And I think that's why this still resonates today, even outside of ranch life. Because we're all depending on something. People, systems, decisions. And when pressure hits, you find out real quick what's solid and what isn't. A cowboy could lose his hat. He could lose his bedroll. He could lose even a day's work. But if he lost his horse, he wasn't a cowboy anymore. Not out there, not where it counted. Out on the open range, nothing worked without that partnership. Not the cattle drives, not the long days, not the quiet miles in between. Because every decision, every moment, every risk taken was carried out on the back of that horse. And when things got hard, when the weather turned, when the herd broke, when the ground gave way beneath you, that wasn't the moment to figure it all out. That was the moment everything you'd built either held or it didn't. That partnership, it wasn't loud. It wasn't showy. Most of the time, it barely drew attention at all. Just a man riding across open country doing his work. But underneath that was trust. Built slowly, earned over miles, proven when it counted. And maybe that's why it still resonates. Because whether you're in the saddle or not, we're all building something like that. Something we depend on. Something that has to hold when the pressure shows up. Out there, the horse beneath him was everything. And in a lot of ways, that idea still rides with us today. Okay, before we close out for this week, we've got one more thing. Yep, that distinctive call from Buster the Bull means it's time for our Cowboy Glossary term of the week. And this week's term is finished horse. So a finished horse, that's one that's fully trained. In the vaquero style of horsemanship, he's experienced, tested, reliable. The kind of horse that's seen enough to stay steady when things get tough. And out on the range, that's the kind of horse you wanted underneath of you. Well, that's about all for this episode of Way Out West. I appreciate you taking time out of your day to spend with me. If you've enjoyed this episode, I'd appreciate you subscribing wherever you get podcasts. And if you'd like to support this work directly, I'd never say no to a cup of coffee. There's a link waiting in the show notes. And one quick note before we ride off this week. Next week on Way Out West, I'm featuring an encore episode, one I think deserves another listen. Not everything we're saying gets heard the first time, and this one stuck with me. And I'll be back the following week with a new story to kick off a new season. Until then, this is Chip Schweiger reminding you, what you build over time is what carries you when it counts. We'll see you down the road.